Give it up, stand up, give the warmest rockstar applause for Angel Garcia. Bueno. Normally we've got the Rocky theme, we've got the Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
There were some technical problems, so welcome to Sharp Grind, Angel. How many times have you been welcomed as a rock star on stage?
Not so many, to be honest.
Not so many.
No, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, being welcomed as a
pressure?
rock star. No, not the pressure, but I don't think I'm far away to be a rock star.
Okay, before I go into the introduction saying what you did in life, you mentioned before that you don't go to a lot of events. You seem to have this sort of conviction that the events are also a bubble. Tech events and startup events are a bubble, so maybe you want to comment why you're not going to events, and what do you think about that?
Which is true probably is that in the city, especially now, we have too many. I think that each of us, we can go to a couple of events every day if we want to go to an event. And the difference between one event and another event sometimes is not so big. So I try to be very selective in the events that I'm attending and the events that I'm speaking. So I think the Startup Green is already a reference in the city. I think that you just mentioned 46 edition.
Yeah.
This is remarkable. So you have done something well, I'm pretty sure, in order to achieve these 46.
We give catering. That's
okay.
really good. Yeah.
And to bring these partners on board, and I think there are too many events to attend, but I think not only me, I think everybody has to be very selective in the events that they are attending because there are a lot of things to do. I mean, your business cannot be to be attending events. There are a lot of things to be done, and it's not about having beers and drinks every day. It's good to be connected with the community, but it's good to be selective in the events that you are attending. That's my opinion, of course.
Well, actually, when we start being entrepreneurs and probably investors at the very beginning of our careers, we try to go to as many events as possible because we don't have a sustainable business. We need to make connections happening. So probably it's a good strategy at the beginning to go to a lot of events. But then you reach a point where networking becomes not working.
Right.
How did you identify that also in your career? Or what's a good advice for the entrepreneurs in the room?
I think that probably you attend a lot of events at the beginning, but you also realize that not all the events were worthy for you.
Exactly.
So at the end, you become a selective person, understanding which events you want to attend, which events are bringing you something, which events are not really adding you nothing else. And this is probably changing the way that you are evolving as a person, as a businessman. Right? Probably at the beginning, you are much more naive in some specific things. Once you learn some things, you want to attend events that can deliver something else to you. Maybe at some point, networking is not so relevant for you, so you are looking for other things. And I think this is the right way to do it.
Well, you were CFO of Fractus for so many years, disrupting the, now I'm going to go into the introduction so that you've got perspective of what Angel has done and why is he here. And you disrupted the mobile industry, working with very disruptive patents with the antennas, for instance, or wireless signals. You sold your patents to HTC, Nokia, Samsung over the years. Are you still receiving royalties for that, or can you explain a little bit about that before we go into the rest of your career?
Yeah, let me share 2 minutes with the audience about I mean, I think this was early 2000, almost 15 years already, where especially venture capital in the city was something that really doesn't exist. And Fractus was a company that was bringing a really disruptive technology in the antenna field. Well, if you remember, and some of you are young enough, the cell phones used to have an external antenna. You remember it, right? So we create a technology that allowed to remove the external antenna and to have an embedded antenna really inside the phone. But it's not only that. For instance, the antennas in the cars, you probably are familiar with these 40 centimeters antennas in the cars. Yeah. It's so inconvenient. But this 40 centimeters antenna has been there the last 50 years. Why? Because there is a physical law for that's saying if you want to receive FM, you need a 40 centimeters antenna. The same kind of thing for the antenna in the phone, the same kind of thing for the antennas. Those ugly antennas in the roof that provide coverage to the cell phones has been always there. So Fractus was really creating a new disruptive antenna can allow you to have smaller antennas. No, nothing super sexy, but do something very functional, to remove the antenna in the phone, to remove the antenna in the cars, or to remove the antenna in the roofs. And it was very disruptive. Lots of investors from all around the world, because in Barcelona there was not really venture capital industry. Interested in the company. We raised in several rounds around $30 million from really big guys like Apex Partner or 3i. Apex Partner, for you to understand, is a $7 billion fund. 3i is floated in the London stock market, so a VC that is floated in the London stock market on a $7 billion fund were interested in the company. At this point, I remember another company that had the same investors, the same British investors, was eDreams. There was eDreams and Fractus having Apex Partner and 3i joining the company. When you receive such a big amount of money from these big guys, you have to grow up the company dramatically. Because, I mean, raising the money, to some extent, is just the easy part. The difficult part becomes how you spend properly the money and generate enough value in order to return this money with this value. So I understand that most of you will say, well, it's very hard to raise money. It is, but it's even much more hard to increase the value with this amount of money. So we moved from something like 20 people in the company to like 85, 90 people in the company. We opened a branch in Korea for the Samsung and LG guys, 30 Koreans out there, really difficult. Another branch in the US, and the headquarters here in Barcelona, in Sant Cugat. We brought people from all around the world, because when you are trying to do something such as specific as an antenna technology, you want to bring the best talent that you can find around the world. The smarter guy about antennas from Australia, or the smarter guy about antennas from Korea, and trying to bring those to the company. More than 23 nationalities. We had a chairman that was the former chairman of Ericsson in France, really high executive. So it seems that we have all the ingredients to be successful. An amazing technology, the best investors you can find, but it was very hard, because we were targeting companies like cell phone makers, car makers, or even telco operators. Very big companies, and a nice startup we're approaching to them, saying, I have a super fancy and cool technology that is going to change the way that you make products. That's a statement, so quite cool. But it's very difficult. Imagine a startup trying to convince Samsung, for instance, you have to change your current antenna technology and replace by my antenna technology that is super disruptive and super amazing. Well, those companies are big companies, are very afraid about the risk. And they don't want to take the risk to deal with a startup, a company, even having significant fundraising. So it was very hard to really get on board those kind of companies. But finally, we were able to do so. We start to sell antennas to Samsung, to LG, and other players all around the world. We start to make money. Investors start to be quite happy. Things are going quite well. Board meetings were very good. And we were like 2 years having significant revenues, growing a lot the company, growing the company. But at some point, I remember that some of our customers decide that they find out other suppliers that they were doing the same thing cheaper. It's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
What happens is after 2 years, other suppliers, other companies understand how the technology works, and they were trying also to capture market. I'm going to say this in a very polite way. We had a strong patent portfolio. We had more than 500 patents all around the world. 500 patents are a lot of patents.
Yeah.
A lot of patents.
500 more than I have. Yeah.
Even me.
Yeah.
So at some point, we start to have many more competitors, many more companies trying to supply the same kind of products, the same kind of solutions that we were supplying. And we moved from delivering a high technology, remarkable, helping people to solve problems, to a price competition. Because other suppliers understand how we make the same thing that we were doing. Even they weren't so protected as we were protected by our intellectual property. So at some point, we moved from having this level of sales and even losing break-even point and starting to have cash issues. Then we came back to our great investors, guys, we need more money because we are about to run out of money. And they said, well, we invested in this company in order to design, manufacture, and sell antennas to big suppliers, but it seems that this is not working. So maybe to put more money is not the right thing to do. Well, what do we have to do? Well, let's try to sell the company. Well, try to sell the company 3-4 years after we create the company with something that probably some of you know, that is a liquidation preference for 30 million euros. Who know what is a liquidation preference?
Raise your hand.
Oh, then I have to explain it.
Great.
$30 million is when you get an investment from an investor and they put 10, 20, 30 million. They used to ask you that, okay, I'm going to put $30 million in your company, but I would like that if in the future we sell the company or we get dividends or whatever liquidity event, the first 30 million is just for me. Not for all the shareholders, just for me. It's called liquidation preference. In other words, if we sell the company after 4 years and we get less than $30 million, all the money is going to be get by the investors. And remember that at this point we were a company without a break-even point and facing difficulties to survive. So aiming to have more than 30 million valuation is going to be a challenge. You understand the liquidation preference thing? Okay. So, but sometimes you have this kind of agreement, so let's try to sell the company. We hired an M&A. You know what is an M&A? An M&A is those kind of companies that help you to sell the company. The guys that have the ability to put a nice PowerPoint, that they know the cell phones of the big corporations. They call, John, I have something for you. These kind of companies.
Like a broker.
It's a broker, of startups or companies, and they're helping VCs and companies in order to find a buyer for the company. Mm-hmm. So we had an M&A from New York with offices in London and offices in San Francisco, that they were some kind of experts in selling European tech companies to NASDAQ companies. Okay? Then you hire the money, you negotiate the fees, because they used to be very expensive, and most of the fee for them is in a contingency fee basis. So if we sell the company, we will get a tranche of whatever you are getting. Meaning that the first sale that you have to do is to the M&A, because they are working to some extent at risk. So if they are not understand that they are going to sell this company, they are going to get nothing. So if I'm not convincing Alex as an M&A that it's going to be a great sale, he's not going to take the risk. So it's not just calling a consulting company that they get fees. All of them are going to say, yes, I'm going to work for you. This is $500,000 a year. And M&A, you have to convince them that this is a good deal for them. We did it. Then the next thing is they prepare all the marketing materials, what they call, they put in a nice way all the information about the company, and they start to set up the meetings all around the world. So I remember that we spent like 6 months traveling around the world, meeting corporations in Asia, in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Tokyo, in Taiwan, in the US, hoping that any of those corporates are going to be interested in the company. Some of the information is confidential, so I'm looking at the camera.
We can just put it like beep in the video. We've done that before.
Now, but to remember, just for you to understand, I remember the first offer, remember, liquidation preference of 30 million.
Yeah.
The first offer was something like 2 million.
Yeah.
The investor, oh, it looks good. I mean, it's 2 million. It could be great. Not really. Yeah. But very important, I think that we were very lucky to have 2 companies interested, 2 NASDAQ companies. I mean, we're relevant companies. I mean, it's these 2 NASDAQ companies. Something that I learned from the Americans some time ago, that they told me that the first offer you ever make should be crazy, but not insane. And they did it. It was crazy, but not insane. So we were lucky because we had 2 companies interested. So those 2 guys were competing, and we were able to increase the price 10, 17, 23, 50, 60, and at some point, and maybe I cannot disclose, but it was a great proposal. Oh, this is going to be great. So we signed the term sheet. You know what is term sheet? Term sheet, terms and conditions of the acquisition. I'm going to buy this company by this amount of money according with these conditions. Great. Because the next thing that you have to do is to put the lawyers to work and what are going to be the details of the acquisition. So you sign the term sheet, you are almost happy, but it's not done. It's not done yet. Term sheet is not binding. You know what is binding? Could be, but it's not for sure. So you sign the term sheet, the lawyers start to work, lawyers from the US, lawyers from the British investors, our lawyers, conference call, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., these kind of things. Was almost done, was like the version 19th of the agreement, and the buyer told us, okay guys, almost done, come to the US, we're gonna close the deal. We were very happy. We were about to sell the company by a significant amount of money. We went to the US. We spent 1 week, I remember, in the headquarters of the company, meeting our future owners, the vice president of sales, having dinner with another guy. And I remember we were about to sign something like Friday, and Thursday evening, a senior executive of the company came to the room and said, guys, we are going to drop the offer. He dropped the offer. We came back to Spain, and I remember that we had like something like 2 or 3 weeks of cash in the bank. When you don't have break-even point, you're trying to sell the company, you're doing roadshows, trying to find investors, while the business, you cannot pay a lot of attention. And I remember the Chapter 11, el concurso de acreedores, came to my table. You know that you're not going to be able to pay your employees, and you have to go to the court and say, guys, my honor, judge, I cannot pay, we have to liquidate the company. So try to understand, I mean, from being here with a multi-million offer to a couple of weeks after being about to go bankrupt. It's hard. What we did is we did a management buyout. Management buyout, raise your hand, no? Management buyout is where the management of the company tried to buy the shares of the investors back. The problem was we had some investors that they were not willing to invest in the new business model, let's call it this way, of the company that might be litigate or use our patent portfolio against companies that might be using our technology. So let's try to buy those shares. Difficult, someone that invests this, and you probably have to offer them to buy the shares back by something like this. It's a challenge. So we put together some money from other investors that were not the Apex Country I guy, and we buy the shares back from Apex Country I. It was very hard. I'm not going to go into the details, but it was hard. So we take, to some extent, the control back of the company. The next thing is something that I have to come back now, and this is why a company from the US were willing to invest or to buy a European company, a company from Barcelona, for a significant multi-million offer. I think this is the question mark, because the company was not having significant revenues. Was because in the due diligence, no? Due diligence is the analysis that the buyer is doing of the company that is acquiring. They were analyzing the patents, they were analyzing the financials, but another thing that they did, they were analyzing how strong our patent portfolio, our infringement could be. So this company, they went to the market, they bought like 400 phones. If you remember 10 years ago, there were like 50 Nokias, 40 Motorola's. Now it's iPhone and Samsung. But 10 years ago, it was like lots of Motorola's, lots of Nokias. They bought all the phones. They opened the phone, they checked the antenna, they checked our patents. And they came to the conclusion that the majority of the antennas in the market were using our intellectual property. The majority, a high number. So they were considering to buy our company, to take the patents and try to monetize those investments, okay? I'm a little lost now. So we were in the management buyout.
Buyout, yeah.
In the management buyout. So we buy the shares back of the investors in the company, and then the next thing we were considering that the cell phone industry is using our intellectual property, how to get the money back. So the first thing that you think is, okay, let's hire some lawyers and let's send the lawyers to these guys. But if you want to take legal actions against guys like Samsung or LG, think about spending millions of millions. I mean, I'm talking about 10 or 15 millions. And we had nothing. So, but there are some lawyers in the US that are working a contingency fee basis. Success fee. Yeah. So they are taking the risk to work for you for free, but if we are getting some money in the future, we are going to get a tranche of whatever we are getting, okay? So another month in the US dealing with 2 or 3 lawyers, and it was very hard because the lawyers were doing the same thing that the M&A were doing. I mean, does it make sense to invest here time and resources? This is going to work, this is not going to work, these kind of things. But finally, we closed an agreement with one of the lawyers, and the next thing was to starting to prepare a potential litigation in the US against those companies. I remember that even before litigation, we settled with 2 big companies in the US. We settled with Apple and with Motorola. Motorola paid us a licensing fee in order to use our technology. The next thing is we filed a lawsuit in the US in Tyler. Tyler is a very small village, 200 miles east Dallas. And we filed a lawsuit, Fractus, the name of the company, filed a lawsuit in Tyler, Texas against Samsung, LG, BlackBerry, HTC, Sanyo, Kyocera, around 10 companies, due to the infringement of our intellectual property. We picked on our patents, and we told the judge that these guys are infringing our intellectual property, okay? So 2 years after, we had the trial. Lots of things happened in these 2 years, but this is too short to talk about these 2 years. So 2 years after, we went back to Texas, and we had the trial in a really, really small courthouse. I remember it was the post office in the first floor, and was the courthouse in the second floor. Like a movie, when it was a jury, 8 guys from Tyler, Texas, attending the trial, talking about patents and antennas and these kind of strange things. By the day of the trial, was 5 of May, out of the 10 companies that we filed a lawsuit, we have settled with 9. We spent the 2 years from the day that we filed the lawsuit to the day of the trial negotiating and trying to find a settlement with those 10 companies. We settled with almost 9 companies. I think that this generates around $65 million in license agreements, a big portion for the lawyers. And the only guy that didn't want to settle was Samsung. Samsung was saying that was not infringing, so we have a trial with Samsung, 1 week of trial in Tyler, and finally the jury said that all the Fractus patents are valid. When you have in a patent litigation, the first thing is the patents are valid or not. So the jury said that all the patents of Fractus are valid. The second question is, are the products, the accused products, the products of Samsung, infringing the patents? Said all the Samsung products are infringing the Fractus patents. And the third thing was the damages. And the jury said that Samsung has to pay $23 million to Samsung for damages. $23 million that Samsung didn't pay because they appealed to the upper level, trying to make it longer. But 1 year after, we went to Washington to the appeal, and we were waiting for the verdict of the appeal, and Samsung called us, we have to talk, okay, and we finally settled with Samsung. This is a short summary of the story.
It's great, yeah. It's kind of like an elevator pitch.
But the point here is that you might have a really disruptive, exclusive, amazing technology, changing the current way of doing things. You can have the best investors, because we were cherry picking. I mean, we had Intel Capital, Qualcomm Ventures, all these guys willing to put money. Those 2 are the right guys. You can have the best investors, and even though it's really, really difficult to make a successful company, it's really hard. And if I have to add something, why a company that originally was trying to design, manufacture, and sell antennas, a hardware company, at the end ends being a licensing company and making a lot of money with changing investors, changing business model, everything in the middle? Why this happened?
Now it's called pivoting. It didn't have a name in the past, probably, right?
But who is going to pivot is the team. Yeah. So when investors were talking about team, it's about these kind of things. I mean, those kind of pivots or changes is going to be done by the team. A committed and a motivated team, because sometimes, believe me, I remember several times where we were saying, okay, give up. That's it. I mean, there were like 2 or 3 inflection points where do you really make sense to keep fighting and keep chasing this dream? So it's hard.
It's hard, and that's why I wanted to focus on this particular story, at least at the beginning, because recently I read an article by Tiny VC, which is a VC that they just do unconventional things, and they were extra harsh on every entrepreneur's dream of, I'll create a company, I'll just sell it to Salesforce or to Google. It's like, well, the chances for that are astronomically very, very, very small. And these resonated a lot because they go like, well, you create the company, you make the revenue, you reach break even probably, then you receive an offer. From the moment that you receive an offer, you start holding talks. Then you become distracted from your regular grind, your regular routine. Then if the offer is more or less successful, but non-binding probably, then you go into due diligence that takes like 6 months. 6 months that your founder team or C-levels, they need to be focused on the numbers. So distracted from your daily operations, right? And then more negotiations come, and finally they even have the option of dropping the offer. So maybe you lose 1 year or 1 year and a half, and you haven't sold the company, and that can ruin your company. So do you relate to this, and this is something that is the biggest lesson learned from practice, or that experience with practice?
I have to say that everything is very difficult.
Everything's very difficult. That's the headline.
But it's very difficult to create a new company. It's very difficult to be an investor and make money. Most of the investors are not making money.
Yeah.
So probably the way that you have to think about that is that I'm willing to do so. What I'm going to get some learns. I'm going to enjoy the experience. Probably this is the more important thing. If your main goal is that I want to do that because I want to get 20 million back, probably it's not enough. Yeah. It's about consider to enjoy the journey, and it's going to be a learning process. You're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to have a lot of satisfactions. You're going to have a lot of unsatisfactions. You're going to have a lot of bad days and a lot of good days. But don't only do that because I'm expecting to get whatever amount of money you're expecting. Because if not, then it's about managing expectations. If your expectation is to get whatever amount of millions and you are not getting, you're going to be depressed. But if your expectation is to enjoy the experience, to learn, to be your own owner, to take your own decisions, so probably it's the right thing to do. Taking care and controlling the risk. I mean, don't go bankrupt. I mean, try to avoid to go bankrupt. And try always to have a backup plan. But try to enjoy the journey is the most important thing. You are going to learn. I think it's a good experience to be your own owner and to take your own decisions and to some extent to run your life. Could be hard, but I think the experience is good.
Nowadays, we've got people like Elon Musk that they're just basically connecting cities by giant tunnels and sending shit to space and creating electric cars and democratizing like the solar power, right? And how did you face rejection when you were pitching to investors like, I'm going to remove this small thing protruding from your cell phone? Did you face any rejection at all? Did you have the impression that investors were kind of like, well, this guy is crazy, that's not going to work, or what is this for?
Rather to ask directly this question, what I want to tell you, you always have rejections.
Yeah.
But fundraising is a numbers game. Mm-hmm. Fundraising is about if you want to get 2 investors on board, you have to meet 50 investors. And try to find 2 that fall in love with you. Mm-hmm. It's a numbers game. It's not, of course, that a lot of things are affecting this, but you're always going to get rejections. You're always going to have people that we don't believe this is our scope of investment. It's not the right time for us. We don't believe the project. It's a numbers game. If not, it's not going to work.
I want to transition a little bit more, unless you want to cover something else about practice, but one of the things we wanted to cover here is how to become an investor. And I know you're not a conventional investor. You always point out that. But the transition from being an entrepreneur to actually having some money or somebody else's money and wanting to spend it and investing in other companies, how do you actually do it? Because there might be people in the audience that want to become an investor. How did you make that decision?
Yeah. What happens is at some point, so Fractus became a very legal company. We have a bunch of PhDs in antennas that are creating new things, another bunch of guys that are writing in a paper what these guys are creating, or lawyers, and other guys trying to monetize this technology. And after several ups and downs, I mean, it's tough. I decided probably it was the right time to do other things. When you consider to do other things, what you do is you look at your skills. What are the things that I know how to do it? Yeah. The first thing was at this point was the opportunity to set up a new accelerator in the city. Yeah. Was
Startup Bootcamp.
Startup Bootcamp. Yeah. At this point, the city hall, the Mobile World Capital, and some corporate, Cisco and others, they were considering to set up an international accelerator in the city. The city was booming 3 years ago, and it's the right thing to do. And they were looking for someone with this background, entrepreneur, investors, and very well connected in the local community, so it was me. Yeah. And I decided that was something great to do, to come back a little bit to the city. And I spent the last 3 years trying to make this happen in Barcelona. I think it was very good for the city. We brought entrepreneurs from around the world. We invested in more than 30 companies, and was something great. In parallel, when you are in this space, you always have interesting opportunities that come to your table. I mean, it's people are asking for money, people is asking for advice, people is asking for other things. Yeah. And there was a group of people in the city, people that already have successful business in the digital space, that we were always receiving these kind of suggestions. Okay, would you like to invest in my company? So at some point, I decided to try to put together all these guys, people like the founder of eDreams, one of the founders of eDreams, one of the founders of Softonic, was a very successful company. So 7, 8 guys, very successful in their current startups. We put some millions together, and let's decide to make a specific, special investments in companies we believe that make sense to put the money. So we are not the traditional VC that we raise 40 million and we have to invest 10 million every year. So we are investing our own money, which is, you take a lot of care because it's your money and you don't want to lose it. Exactly. And we do very specific and selective investment, meaning that we are not, it's some kind of super business angel fund, but it's a fund. But we are very special in order to take decisions about investment.
Let's get into more practical things, in the sense that people here want to learn on how to approach an investor, or what you guys are looking for. And you said, like, well, we don't really take a look into, like, we don't have these procedures like standard VCs, right? Can we take a look at a couple of your companies? Like, the first one I want to talk about is Resby. For the people who don't know, it is artificial intelligence for image recognition. They're pretty big in the US for working for the real estate realtors, and they recognize, you send them, upload pictures to the platform, and they say, well, this is a living room, it's got like a fire, it's got a bedroom, or it's got a couch, or this and that, so they help on this, which is really, really good for the realtors. So why did you decide to invest in them? Because of the team, because of the product, because it's AI and it's trending and it's cool? Or what were the criteria here?
Well, first, the team is a must. I mean, if they don't have the team, I mean, you don't move to the next level.
That's good.
And well, there are other things about the team that you can go to other videos and see what we're looking in the team.
Exactly.
What I remember the first meeting that they have with this company, and probably now they are realized about that. Yeah. That was image recognition. Well, it's plenty of image recognition stuff up there. Yeah. And I say, okay, another one about the image recognition.
It's a new big data, right?
Okay, let's have the meeting. Let's see. But there are at least 3 things that are very relevant about image recognition. Because right now with image recognition, you can go to Amazon and to Google, train a little bit, and you will get an image recognition to some extent. Yep. So the first challenge is to have a high level of accuracy, meaning that I'm sending you a picture, I'm going to tell that this is a car, this is a blue car, this is a Ferrari 1998, whatever. Exactly. Being this level, being 100% accurate is a challenge. And these guys, they have this kind of level of accuracy. They have 99% of level of accuracy. With the Google and with the Amazon tools, you can get to the 80, 85%. Yeah. But in some of business, having 80 and having nothing is the same. Exactly. Because you can have a 20% failure rate.
It's kind of like, that's a car. Yeah, I know that, right?
Okay, but what kind of car? So the first thing is accuracy. You need a high level of accuracy. in order to get that, you need a great algorithms behind that.
Yeah.
But the second thing, in order to have a great image recognition company, is the volume. Okay, we have a great accuracy, but I can only check one picture a day.
Yeah, wow.
Super cool, but it's not going to work. So these guys are able to manage millions of pictures in every day. I mean, it's
and
it's
therefore
about
learn faster.
and then the fastest, because at the end it's a learning process. At the end at the beginning you have 85% of accuracy, but you keep learning. At the end you have 100% accuracy. So it's very important to be able to speed up the process or learning.
Yeah.
So it's accuracy, it's volume, and the third one is real time. One of our clients, I don't know if it's public or not, one of our clients is a company called Wallapop.
Yeah.
So
I
Wallapop
think
is
it's
a
not
lot.
public, but yeah.
Well,
We kind of censor. It's a prize for the people coming here.
well, but are companies that are companies or apps that are receiving a lot of image every day uploading to their platforms, right? And the way to understand if those pictures are good or bad pictures, is a nudity or is something that is not
Illegal
good.
or illegal.
The only way to do it is to have humans checking all the pictures. When you have a platform that is getting 4 million pictures a month, there is no way to put, well, there is a way, but it should be in China.
Yeah. We're going to censor that,
It's no way. So these guys are able to, with a high level of accuracy, manage millions of pictures in a real-time scenario. Because sometimes in real time you are loading something, and this thing that you are loading is already in the platform, and you have to wait 3 days in order to validate this picture. Maybe it's not worth enough.
What did you see in the team that made you think like, well, these guys have got this, another artificial intelligence or image recognition startup, but they can take over an entire market like they are doing in the US?
Well, the first thing is that they have the ability to get these kind of technical achievements.
Yeah,
Because
that's good.
Then the team is very complementary.
Yeah.
I would say that they have the 3 skills that you need. You have the technical guy, you have the sales guys, and you have the operations guys.
Yeah.
And I really like the, let's say, not really fashion and old school guys, very hard workers.
Yeah.
Really, those guys that are not really coming to this kind of things. It's really working hard in their dream, in their passion. They have something special, and they know that they have something special, and they are. I think that you know them too.
I know them from very early. That's why I was asking.
And they understand their limitations, and they are trying to get help from the limitations that they have. Very humble, hard workers. Humble and hard workers is something that everybody might say, but it's not super easy to find.
Do you see any trend in the companies that you invest in the soft skills of the people, as in like character or like the attitude? So this humbleness, for instance.
Yeah, at the end, when you are investing this early stage, the way that we are investing early stage, you are investing in the company, but you are investing in the people. It's no way to put the money in the hands of someone that you don't have this kind at least of confidence or a guy that is reliable. It's very hard to describe because sometimes it's just a gut feeling. It's the reality. But taking a look to my portfolio, most of the companies that are doing well, and most of them are doing quite well, most of them we invested the early days, and most of them already raised a Series A, is because the guys are great people and great entrepreneurs. And the companies that you might have a little bit of doubt about, well, this guy maybe, but I'm not pretty sure, are the ones that are failing.
How about other things that would be a red flag for you as an investor? Like if I see this, because we've had in the last events, we've had a couple people saying something like that, right? I will not invest in people who do this with their private life. As in like, I don't know, political orientation or like drug taking or other things, right? We've had this in the last events, and I think it's worth mentioning. How far do you think an investor should look into that stuff before deciding?
Well, it's hard to say because we have to talk about what kind of other things.
Yeah.
But I would like to invest in someone that is going to take care of the company.
Yeah.
I mean, if the private life is doing things that are not affecting the company, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, it's like the point is today you are investing in this guy, and tomorrow could be a completely different guy.
Yeah.
So if today is this guy or another guy, it's very hard to these kind of things about. It's super hard. I'm not especially worried about that. I mean, I want to invest in someone that's going to take care of the money, of the business, is going to put their life and their energy in the dream. It's going to try to achieve that. And if any of those other things is affecting this purpose, then I'm going to be worried. If those other things are not really affecting, and sometimes you have to understand when you are investing in people that are very creative, are very special people sometimes.
Yeah.
And you have to understand how to deal with these kind of people. Does it mean that they are not going to be a good entrepreneurs? Not really.
How do you actually deal with these more? Because I seem to understand what you're getting into. Some of them are the super passionate, like Uber-style guys that they just work hard, play hard, but they work 12 hours a day, they work 24/7, they go the extra mile. And there are some other people that seem to work smarter, as in they probably work 6 hours a day, but they get the shit done. They make the startup advance. They reach the goals. They meet all the tasks that you want or the milestones that you want to achieve, them to achieve. So have you got any special preference on the two styles, or what would be yours?
I don't think that we have invested in any entrepreneur that they have a lot of free time.
Okay.
It's a hard work. I mean, it's starting something. Any of you that you have started something, I know that if you have 18 hours, you will work 18 hours a day. And it's not because you are smarter or not. It's because there are a lot of things to be done.
Yeah.
And you are limited, and you are living in an environment that is with resources are constrained. So it's not that you have 20 people or you have 40 people and you have a lot of money to do everything. I mean, there are always a lot of things to do. If someone early days in the company is just working 6 hours a day, and nothing wrong with that, but
don't tell me, right?
something is not working well. But if you're working 6 hours a day and we have revenues of 20 million a month, I'm gonna be perfectly fine. But don't used to happen.
That's perfect. You seem to have a very hard opinion, very strong opinion on saying that there's a lot of money out there. And a lot of people, one of the things we get is a feedback from the community is like, there's not a lot of seed investment here, or people are not buying into my idea. So you mentioned before the interview, like, there's a ton of money. It's the best time to create a company, the best time to raise money. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And
Two comments about that. About what's the best thing to do is to invest in companies or to set up companies. Well, if you can take this decision, to be honest, I think it's a good time for both. First, because investors, they might have access to a lot of money. It's a lot of money available out there, and you might ask why. Well, first, this startup thing is more and more trendy. But second, we have a microeconomy thing that the interest rate that before were at 7-8%, now it's almost 0%. So these guys that used to have 7 or 8% with trillions of euros doing nothing, now they have to move some money to other things. I'm not saying that they are going to move trillions of money to the venture capital, the private equity thing, but these guys just moving 1% or 2% of trillions, millions to private equity funds or to venture capital funds is going to put a lot of money in the market. At the same time, we have new ways to invest, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, crowdlending, a lot of structure for the people that were not savvy investors in this space. They might also put money in this market. So, and you can say there are more and more venture capital funds, not only here in Spain, but all around Europe, with bigger funds and bigger funds and bigger funds, the same in the US. So I do believe that there's a lot of money in the market. It's going to be a challenge for those VCs to really deliver significant results. It's going to be a challenge because more money at the end is demand against offer. On the other side, I think it's a good opportunity to set up companies right now. And it's not only because there are a lot of money in the market, that could be a reason. It's because I believe that never has been as easy and cheap as it is today to validate if something makes sense or not. And at the end, you have to understand that sometimes you might try to validate something, and after a few months, you have to realize this is not going to work, and I have to try to set up a new thing. But we have the tools, we have the software, we have the solutions that allow us to have a landing page, to bring some traffic, understand if this might work or not. I mean, I think that never, and to track everything that you are doing, never ever has been as easy as it is today.
Can you do a forecast on when's that going to change? Because eventually the bubble's going to burst, or some investors are going to say like, well, we're just giving away money to too many people, and we need to start filtering more, something like that. When is that going to change? Do you have any idea?
It's a challenge to say that because I think it's so much money. Also, we also were talking before about the cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, ICOs.
It's more and more money. I mean, I think it's 100 billion Bitcoins right now there, 30 billion Ethereum out there. So it's more and more money that is coming from somewhere at the end.
Yeah.
And probably some of these trillions of pension funds are moving to the Ethereum. So I don't see right now this changing dramatically. I think we are going to be floating and putting more and more money in this market. We have economies all around the world printing more and more and more money. Mm-hmm. Probably the question mark is what is going to be the value of the money? And this is probably a question that is going to help you to introduce the cryptocurrency, what is going to be the value of these kind of things.
Yep.
But I don't see quite soon changing this trend.
I see the investors are divided in people who say like cryptocurrencies, we need to be there. We don't understand it, but we need to be there. And we've had a fair amount of them in our last events. And there's a significant group of people who say like, this is the hugest scam ever. Get away from it. What's your stance on this? And what are you advising the people? Like, should we look into this? Should we invest into it? Like, are you investing in this? Or should we be a little bit more patient to see where that goes?
I think there are two different questions in one question. One is, as an investor, will you consider to invest in the blockchain and these kind of things? I think you have to be there, and we have to keep learning about it. Yeah. But this is for me clearly is one of the bigger trends right now, blockchain. The problem for investors most of the time is the timing. Yeah. That do not invest too early or too late. Yeah. But blockchain, I think, is a place that we have to be as an investor. That does not mean that we have to invest in ICOs. That is a different animal. At the end, is ICO, I think, will be a nice way of finance things, not only startups, things, creating new cryptocurrencies or whatever. But right now, I think we still need more regulation, more security for, let's say, traditional investors. Yeah. Most of the money that is going to the ICOs are not, let's say, professional investors right now, because they need the environment and the regulations. When you are managing money from other third parties, you need to invest under some terms and conditions. But I'm a truly believer of I wouldn't say the cryptocurrency, I think it's blockchain. It's one of the next things that we have to track. It's going to change the way that we had 30 years ago, we have internet, was a layer, and we start to put business in internet. We start to put e-commerce, and now everything is running on the internet. In internet. Yeah. So I think the blockchain is a new layer that we are going to have, and now we are going to start to have business working in this chain. So when it's going to happen, when it's going to be massive, when it's going to be a mass market, I would like to have the answer, but I don't.
However, you're the partner at Entanglement Partners. I know we don't want to go into too much detail about that, but it's quantum computing, right? Supercomputing, right? So isn't it a little bit too early for that? Or what's your opinion on it? Can you explain what you guys do at Entanglement Partners? Just an overview.
Entanglement Partners, the name is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's
quite crypto.
Yeah, it's a group of people that we set up together in order to help the community to, number one, to help better about quantum computing, and to try to help corporations to understand quantum computing and probably to do things with quantum computing, and probably to sell some services to these companies. And it's amazing the pool of people that we have put together. In fact, I was surprised at the beginning, I remember, to have these great guys with strong knowledge, people well recognized internationally, that we have here in the quantum computing. Quantum computing, we are not going to go into detail.
No.
But could significantly change the way that some of the things that we believe are for sure are going to change. So cybersecurity and these kind of things is going to change. For you to understand, I mean, the power computing of a quantum computer is going to be an exponential way of any of the current computers, meaning that if you believe that something is encrypted and is secure, maybe one day for another it's not going to be secure.
All the passwords will be broken.
So I think it's a strong statement.
Yeah.
Again, when this is going to happen, when we are going to have these quantum computings available, but the point is not when it's going to be available for you and for me. Yeah. When it's going to be available for someone.
Yep.
There are like 3-4 quantum computings in the world, and they are not enough power yet, but they are coming. And at the point that you have a computer that can break your current passwords, then we have an issue. And and you combine blockchain and quantum computing, it could be something very powerful.
And if you think about Russia, well, just let's leave it here. We were talking about quantum computer, which is something very profound and very deep. Let's change it dramatically. This is the last question before we go into the Q&A. And we like to wrap it up with this question. It's very personal. Hope you don't take it too seriously. But everybody has got a stupid and useless superpower. Something you do exceptionally well, but it's very useless. You do it every day. What's yours? That's the hardest question usually.
Of course it is. That's why you are doing the last one.
Some people would leave if I did it at the beginning.
Well, it should be something that I do quite well, but
yeah,
it's worth nothing for me.
Exactly. You got it right. And then, like, I always lock the car, walk away 50 meters, like, did I lock the car? Yeah, and then you will walk back to... Yeah,
well, I mean, you can say a lot of stupid things. I'm very good at watching TV or playing video games, and it's worth not really so much. Depends.
Yeah, it needs to be something more specific to you, let's say.
Yeah. Not sure it's this.
That's a complicated one.
Yeah.
We'll give you a minute.
I think it should be something personal. I
yeah, because like, you know, some people say, like, I eat too much, I sleep too much. It's like, well. That's good. The best answers are the most specific ones. You want more examples?
It's a very uncomfortable situation right now. I mean,
for the first time in the whole interview,
well,
you don't know what to answer?
Next time you will have an interview with me and you will see what is really a tough, tough questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's, I like a lot to write.
Wow.
To write, and it's not really...
Do you write to yourself, for instance?
Yeah, well, write something and you have sometimes ideas and you put together and you write it and you have a file with a lot of things that I wrote.
That's a good one.
But so far there is no one interest to publish.
If you never check, you never go back to that file, that's a very good superpower.
It's like my secret files. It's my secret superpower.
Yeah, it's kind of like
sooner or later I have to use it.
It's kind of like writing directly to the trash bin, something like that.
I'm gonna write something about you later on. So
hope that goes into that file, never sees the light of day. Okay, thank you very much. Give a warm applause for Angel. Now we go into Q&A. Carlos? Questions? Let's hope they're not about quantum computer.
And the easy ones now, please.
And the easy ones now, because this one's been taking a lot of. Yeah.
Hi. Well, is that on?
Yeah, it's working.
Well, thanks for sharing the story. It's very interesting to hear. I think it's safe to say you know a lot about patents, and I was wondering if you had any advice on whether early startups should put any focus on building a patent portfolio, especially in the software area.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's a question I get a lot of times. So,
yeah,
when you are in a startup, I mean, filing a patent is really expensive. Not early days, not the first file, but it's really expensive, and it's not always. It's something that you don't understand if it's going to come back or not. So, even patents save my life. I tend to believe that the best thing is to have a great business model and a great user acquisition strategy. If you have to rely on the patents and you have to monetize your company thanks to the patents, it's going to be an issue. I mean, it's good to have few patents if you have something really unique and something special, but this happens only a few times. I mean, it's get the right advice in order to validate if whatever you want to patent is the right thing to do. Sometimes the best approach is to do not patent nothing, because patent at the end become a public thing. So you have something secret, maybe it's not the right thing to do it. So, but my recommendation is let's try to get advice about this, whatever technology, whatever you have. First is really patentable, because sometimes most entrepreneurs, they believe, no, this is something amazing, but sometimes it's not patentable. They don't have the novelty and these kind of things. Second, and probably most important, how this intellectual property is going to affect your business model going forward. Because if it's not going to be relevant, I mean, don't waste your time and money on these kind of things. Cool.
Hi, I'm Otman. I'm from Belgium. I would like to know what do you see with the political instability? Would you recommend to found a company here? I mean, by yourself. And how do you see in 2 years the ecosystem of startups with your personal vision? Thanks.
That's a hard question. That's harder than mine.
We're asking about Barcelona, man. What does it mean to be? I think Barcelona, is everybody will agree, has evolved possibly in the last 3 years. What's the reason for that? Because I mean, sometimes it's not just to. I'm not saying that Barcelona is a top city about the startups in Europe. I mean, we are doing well, but you have to take the plane and go to London or to Berlin or even Paris and Amsterdam, and you will see there is a lot of people doing a lot of things there. Which is true, Barcelona now is much better than 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what I truly believe that it's going to be much better in 2 years from now than it is today. So the answer is, in 2 years from now, it's going to be much better to set up a company in Barcelona. Probably the answer is yes. If the question is, Barcelona is the best city in Europe to set up a company, probably the answer is one of great company to set up a company, but it's not the best one. It's not the best one. I mean, what had happened in Barcelona, in my opinion, is that we had always the ability to attract talent and people from abroad, because the way of live. I mean, people want to live in Barcelona, and if you are sitting in Copenhagen, and you want to set up a new company with minus 10 degrees outside, well, probably get my laptop, go to Barcelona, and start coding there. Makes sense. So we always had this ability to attract people. The challenge before was to retain those people. Mm-hmm. I mean, when these people start to have something and they need the right coders and the right developers, and they need the money, they face that, well, maybe it's not the right place. And they decide to come back to Copenhagen or to move to London or move to Paris. I think this is one of the things that is changing. Now we have more access to talent, more access to people, to developers, to engineers. The money from abroad is coming here. As I said before, more and more money is coming here. So I think it's quite a good environment to set up a specific kind of company. There is not a 100% sure answer about that. This is the perfect place. I mean, it depends what kind of company, what do you want to do, but definitely it's a good place.
Perfect.
Two more.
We take a couple more? Yeah, there's 2 more over here.
Angel, in the start, I spoke about I was a hardware engineer, and I was interested in hardware startups. However, listening to your story, I just think now maybe the harsh competition you got was from Asian markets. So I'm asking you, do you think setting up a hardware startup in Europe or in Barcelona is worth it? It can compete against Asian startups? Is it possible? Thank you.
Good question.
Well, first is just my opinion. And hardware is tough. Hardware is tough. It's because scaling a hardware company is tough. Pivoting a hardware startup is tough. So all this flexibility that we see in the digital space, in the digital world, that you can pivot, that you can test, that you can validate, that you can do A/B testing, all these kind of things, hardware is much more tough. You need more money because hardware is much more expensive. It's tougher than the typical software company. This is for sure. even though, I mean, if you have something at the end, we make a lot of money with, was not hardware at the end, but was with the technology that was supported by the hardware. So, but I think that you already understand those challenges. The point is to understand what are the mitigations that you can have with this, to these kind of challenges.
Cool. Last one was...
Can you give us any kind of idea on which verticals specifically are you looking at, if there is any? Like, I don't know, narrowband IoT, data analytics, or big data, AI, image processing. I just heard that you made some investment there. Do you have any specific verticals you're looking at? And just a quick second question on Barcelona Tech City. Based on your experience internationally, how do you see, I mean, talent is here, universities here are wonderful, startups are being grown and flourish here. But what about the VCs? With Barcelona Tech City, you are attracting, I understand, international funds as well. How is that relationship going? And how do you see the maturity of the VCs? So not only the startups or the founders and the hardworking guys, but also from your side now on the other side of the spectrum. Thanks.
Well, regarding the first question, is not a specific vertical, even though there are things that we are not doing. We are not doing hardware. We are very reluctant to fintech and these kind of things. But we would like to invest in business that have the ability to be flexible in learning, in pivoting, in changing, in do A/B testing. It's very hard to believe that whatever you are investing today, when we are investing early days, is going to be whatever is going to happen in the future. So companies that requires a lot of money in order to validate things. No, well, we are going to put here 10 million, and we are going to get users, and let's see if there is some value in the 10 million users. I don't want to play this game. So companies that with significant small amount of money can validate or can pivot and can change things, because at the end, when we are investing, for us, the next 2 years are critical. We are trying to invest in those companies that we see a high likelihood that the company will raise a Series A. Why? Because when a company is raising a Series A, the risk from the investor point of view is not disappearing, but is reduced significantly. So is this company in the right state that with our investment and whatever they are going to do, the likelihood to raise a Series A is high? I think that out of the companies that we have in our portfolio, most of them raised a Series A already. There was one of the companies that didn't raise a Series A because they didn't need the money. But most of them already raised the money, the Series A. So these kind of companies that they are going to be able to, with significant small amount of money, being able to pivot and to find a way to the Series A. That means traction at the end. Regarding the same question about Barcelona Tech City.
Yeah, you're attracting foreign VCs. And
well, at the end, foreign VCs are attracted by talented people and amazing startups. When the only thing that we are doing, disclosure here, I mean, I'm board member at Barcelona Tech City.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we are doing, well, the only thing, a remarkable thing that we are doing at Barcelona Tech City is to try to put the hub together and try to put all the ingredients that people might need in order to create something relevant. As I said before, I mean, you need the talented people, you need the engineers, you need the users, you need the UX designer, you need the designers, all these kind of things in environment. We have around 1,000 people working in the building of the Barcelona Tech City. I mean, should be different skills of people. At the end, of course, we are inviting, because we know most of those international investors, to come and to meet the startups. But at the end, investors, they are invested in interesting people and interesting and talented startups. It's about the ecosystem, the ones that have to create this value.
great. Angel, I'm going to give you a challenge in 10 seconds. What can we, as a community, Startup Grind, can do for you or your companies in 10 seconds? And we wrap this up.
Well, for me, it's just, if you have an interesting project, let me know.
All right.
I'm going to be happy to take a look.
That's great.
I think that right now I'm also going to be more focused in setting up more companies. Investing is something I'm going to keep doing, but also I think it's the right time to set up the right companies. So having access to great people and talented people is going to be work, because at the end, there's no way to build amazing things without amazing people. And this is a quote for, this is a quote for you.
Yeah. All right. Let's give it up for Angel. Thank you very much.